Welcome back to B&G Hockey, where it's always black and gold. Well, how about them Bruins? I know we're only a couple games since the NHL's trade deadline, but boy, this is the most fun I've had watching them all season, and it's not even close. And if you're a Bruins fan, how can you not be excited by this? And it does make us ask the question, I know it's a little early for it, but how can you not wonder, is this team actually better than they were before the trade deadline and after selling off so many of their veteran pieces? We're going to talk about it in this video. Let's get started. I feel it's only right to start off by talking about the players the Bruins acquired at the deadline who are already making a pretty significant impact on this team and are a big reason why the Bruins have been able to win these two games. Starting off with the player who surprised me the most of the four that are currently playing for the Bruins lineup, that's defenseman Henri Jokiharju. He's already handling some pretty big minutes. He played 18:38 against Tampa and was a +1, and last night against Florida he played over 20 minutes and was once again a +1. His pairing with Nikita Zadorov has looked really good. In fact, they've made each other better so far. I've been really impressed by Jokiharju's skating ability, his first pass, and I can see why the Bruins might have went after this player, even though he's a rental for them currently. I do think they'll end up re-signing this guy because he's been a pretty good fit in the two games I've seen so far, and him alongside Zadorov has been a really nice pair. Zadorov with Carlo, I think that's just two defensive guys who are a little slow, but having a guy like Jokiharju open up offensively a little bit, I think has opened up Zadorov's game as well, who every now and then sneaks in offensively, but is probably more of the defensive guy in that pair. They've looked pretty good, and if that's your second pair behind Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm next season, that's not too bad. And obviously you have a guy like Mason Lohrei, so maybe his pair is the second pair. But either way, Jokiharju's been impressive so far, and I don't mind the Bruins using this pick to acquire him at the deadline, especially if they're able to re-sign this guy, because he's been a sneaky good ad for them. Let's see if he can keep that up the rest of the season, and if he enjoys himself here in Boston. It sure looked like he was having some fun last night, especially when he was on the bench patting his deep pair, Nikita Zadorov, on the back coming off the ice after that big fight. And we'll talk about that later in this video, don't you worry. But let's keep talking about the players the Bruins just acquired and how they've helped this team. Another player who's really impressed me so far in these two games is Casey Mittelstadt. This is a guy I wasn't too excited about getting, haven't really loved watching his game in the past, but maybe I just haven't watched him enough because his speed and skill is very apparent. Playing a pretty good chunk of minutes, 17:55 in the Tampa Bay game where he had an assist and was a +2, and 16:49 last night against Florida where he once again had an assist. Beautiful pass on the power play to get things going. His passing skills are there, his stick handling ability is there, and his speed is definitely more apparent than I thought it was. I like that they're playing him in his natural position of center, seeing if he can re-find his game there after he was playing quite a bit of wing for the Avalanche. So I'm excited to see this player continue to grow. He's still young, on a pretty solid contract, again, not making that much more than Charlie Coyle, who you would have been paying next year anyway. If this guy can turn into a player and continue to grow his game further than he has at the NHL level, that's a huge ad for the Bruins, because I would have done that trade 1-for-1 for Coyle, but obviously we got even more in that package with a really good prospect and a pick. If Casey Mittelstadt continues to develop like this, that's going to be an unbelievable trade, if it isn't already, for Don Sweeney. Now let's talk about the boys from the Minnesota Wild, starting with Marat Khusnutdinov. He's getting a bigger opportunity here in Boston, playing a couple more minutes than he did for the Wild, getting some PK time, which is pretty impressive for a new guy in a room, bringing that speed, bringing that tenacity, exactly what I expected from the player. Still want to see a bit more of that offensive pop, but I think if he keeps playing the way he has, at the speed he is, that's going to come. Played 13-15 in the game against Tampa and 14-43 in the game against Florida. He's going to continue to get opportunities and looks pretty good on that line with Elias Lindholm and his buddy Jakub Lauko. Speaking of Lauko, this guy is a Bruin, man. I'm so happy to have him back. Seems like the players who used to play with him are pretty happy too. Seems like he's a popular guy in the locker room, bringing a fun atmosphere to the game, and he is a much-needed shot in the arm of energy for this team. His speed, his tenacity, much like Khusnutdinov, they are very noticeable almost every single shift. He was a huge reason Lohrei was able to score. I don't know if he was credited with assists. It doesn't look like he was, but the points will come for Lauko Brazeau if he continues to bring this effort, but the way he battled to get that puck back, allowing Lohrei to come in the slot and score that beautiful goal was really impressive. Not playing a ton of minutes, played 12-24 in Tampa, 10-48 yesterday against the Panthers, but playing in a solid depth role in the bottom six. This guy is pretty darn good and gives you a lot more than guys like Brazeau or Trent Frederic were giving you, playing much more minutes and better opportunities. So I'm excited to see this guy continue to grow his career as a Bruin. I'm happy he's back with us, and hopefully they get him on a pretty solid contract and continue to see this energy from him night in and night out, because I really believe that's just the kind of guy he is. But the new guys aren't the only ones stepping up here in this two-game run. In fact, this guy is a player who's stepped up for a little bit now, pretty much since Charlie McAvoy went down, and that's Mason Lohrei, who's really developing into a solid NHL defenseman. Played 23-54 against Tampa, 19-47 last night against the Panthers, and scored that beautiful goal in the slot. It's great to see him continue to develop his offensive game, getting some time on the power play there. I'd like to see him get that spot moving forward in the future, maybe giving McAvoy some competition, and a few less minutes for McAvoy could probably go a long way. Maybe you move him to the second power play, but this guy's continuing to develop into a player, and is one of the reasons that Bruins fans should be excited for the future and not sad about the pieces they moved away. I know he's a left shot, but moving Carlo on the right side does add a little bit more opportunity for a guy like Lohrei, at least when it comes to minutes on the back end. I want to continue to see this player grow and develop, especially if they can get him at a pretty solid number this year when he's an RFA. He's going to continue to be a monster on this blue line. Speaking of monsters, Nikita freaking Zadorov, worth every single penny of that contract, watching him beat down on Sam Bennett. Man, was that awesome. You just love to see that. Love to see the fight. Even his quote after the game, talking about how guys aren't giving up. They're playing for the crest. They're working their balls off, as he said. There's no quitting this team, and you can really tell that with these guys. And this is a player who's going to be a leader in this locker room moving forward, is already a good veteran presence, a guy who's been popular in the room in the past. But I now think moving guys like Coyle, Carlo, Marchand, who obviously had voices in the room, you allow new voices. And maybe we weren't using Zadorov to his fullest potential, and I know he really fired up the guys. Like I said, Jokiharju was laughing on the bench. Lohrei said he hasn't been that fired up in a while. I think the boys loved it, and this is going to be a guy who's going to be an important piece for the Bruins moving forward as they have this retool. He's played some big minutes as well, much like Lohrei. Played 20-31 against Tampa and had a goal. Played 22-48 against Florida, had an assist, and obviously that fantastic beatdown on Bennett. So you love to see that. You love to see this guy earning his contract, and I'm really excited to see how Zadorov looks the rest of this season and moving forward as he becomes a bigger piece for the black and gold. And the final two players are two of your most important players alongside Charlie McAvoy, who's obviously out right now, for now and in the future. That is David Pastrnak and Jeremy Swayman. Jeremy Swayman is 2-0 in these past two games, had a shutout against Tampa where he had 25 saves, had 28 saves against the Florida Panthers, and a .929 save percentage. This might be the best he's looked all season, and that is huge for this team. They paid him a ton of money. He's one of their best players, and he's one of the leaders in the room. You don't see the goalie get the captaincy or make a ton of speeches, but goalies are really important, and they can be the backbone of your team. When your goalie's playing with confidence, the team is playing with confidence. And I think you can see that. And when Jeremy Swayman is on, he's a really cool guy and a really good goalie and a guy that the team can build around. David Pastrnak, a very similar player. If you ask me today who's my next captain, I said it before, it would be David Pastrnak. The way he's played with so much passion throughout this up and down season, continuing to put up numbers. In these past two games, he has a goal and 2 assists and was a +2, so he's continuing to be on his massive point streak and playing like an MVP caliber player. That's my future captain. Swayman is my franchise goalie. Maybe not playing like it the most of this season, but over the past couple of games, these players have been really important and have showed you why they're worth investing in and why this team is not going to go all the way down to the bottom. This will not be a rebuild. This will most definitely be a retool, because right off the bat, just having these two players coupled with their other stars like McAvoy and a few other players sprinkled in, the Bruins are going to be just fine. Don't look now, Bruins fans, but with a record of 30, 28, and 8 and a total of 68 points on the season, your Boston Bruins are only 2 points out of a playoff spot. Sure, a couple other teams have games at hand on us. Sure, it's highly unlikely they're probably not going to make the playoffs, but boy, what a story that would be if they were able to galvanize around this group, come together and believe and play the hardest they've played all season, trade their captain, trade a couple of bum veterans who are just dragging their feet and not playing with passion, and they make the playoffs. I would love to see that, but if nothing else, just making a solid push and getting close and growing together as a group, because this is very likely going to be a similar team to next season. I think they'll be able to re-sign these players to pretty low cap hits. Obviously, you have a guy like Mittelstadt who's already signed. Some of the prospects they have will continue to grow. Fraser Minten's playing in his first game with Providence. The future is bright for this team. And oh, did I mention, we have quite a bit of cap space next year as well, so they're going to be able to add a couple of really good impact players to this group. I love that we play with speed. I love that we play with heart. Little bit of physicality still, even though we lost some size. I think the Bruins went a little too much on size last season, so I'm happy to see us moving towards a new age direction of speed, skill, and going back to the roots of the Boston Bruins black and gold crest, playing with heart. And that's exactly what this team is doing. I can't wait to see how they finish the season. And you know what? I'm all in. I want to make the playoffs. I don't even care if we lose in the first round. I would just love to see that. I love the story. And in the NHL, drafting from 8th or 16th, it's really not that big of a difference. So I don't care if the Bruins ruin their chances at a better pick. I want to see them push for the playoffs, and let's see if we can do it. So what do you think, Bruins fans? Do you think this team makes a playoff push? Leave that down below in the comments. If you're excited to watch this team play the rest of the year like I am, make sure to give this video a big like, and if you haven't already, subscribe.